Let's take a look at this. We're going to do it 4 schools at a time. And here we go. All right, so what you see here, Alabama's most played rivals over there on the left. All right, so it's 1 through 5, their most played games. And it's not just in the SEC, this is their most played games, period. All of theirs happen to be in the SEC. They've played Mississippi State more than anybody. Tennessee the second most, then LSU, then Auburn because they didn't play for years. Now at the bottom, and you guys can debate this with me, and tell me if I'm wrong, in red, their big rival's Auburn, in my opinion. So I put the big rival in red. Yeah. Look at Arkansas. For years, they've said they didn't have a rivalry, and Texas A&M came in. That helped. They've played them most of all. Texas is big for them, though. That's their big rival. Yeah. So to get Texas back, I think is huge. But look who they've played the most. Tulsa, SMU, TCU. Well, they're not in the SEC. So if you wonder why they feel like they're outsiders, that's why. Auburn, all right, they've played Georgia the most. It's the oldest rivalry in the Deep South. Mississippi State, Georgia Tech, formerly the SEC. They played them a lot. Alabama, Florida. Clearly, their big rivalry is Alabama. No debate here so far. Ryan, I'm going to let you debate this one for me, though. You tell me the answer. Florida, they played Georgia more than anybody. Then Auburn, which they lost that. They've still got Auburn that they've played second most, and they haven't played them every year annually since '92. So that tells you how often they played them. Kentucky, LSU, Florida State. And Florida State didn't start playing football until, what, the 50s, 40s, 50s? So that's why that's not higher. Who's their big rivalry, though? Is it Georgia or is it Florida State? Is it in-state hate or is it the cross-border Georgia thing?
This is a tough one. Georgia has become more important because it's what stands in the way of their SEC championship hopes every year, but I think it's probably Florida State because of just the in-state hatred. They butt heads in recruiting all the time. It'd be hard to top that one. Like you said, just not as long of a history, but recent history is really good for that one.
Georgia, Florida State, who's their big rival?
I think it's Georgia. They play it in Jacksonville, and because it's an SEC game and because sometimes the SEC the divisional title, which is no longer, the divisional title is on the line, I would go Georgia.
I want to hear from some Florida people. I wonder, I hope I get an email or two from Florida people because I want to know if you had to choose, you want in-state bragging rights against Florida State or do you want that SEC win over Georgia? Where do you think it's Florida State or Georgia?
Florida State.
Okay.
As somebody who used to room in college, right after college with a Florida fan, and they knew how important Georgia was. First time I brought a girl home, Florida State fan, get her out of the house, and it wasn't just like a bitter thing. He was spitting venom. Florida State. It's just one instance. I believe, though, it's the Gators and the Noles.
Did you get her out of the house?
Yeah, and there wasn't a second date, coincidentally.
He's got his priorities off.
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Georgia for a couple of reasons. One is the SEC, the importance that game did have when they were both good in the SEC, and because Ryan said Florida State, I'm still mad at him by Auburn. So I'm gonna go Georgia.
I can tell he's going to hold that against
I'm
me.
going to go Florida State. I just think that in-state stuff is pretty big, but we'll see. That's why I'm asking the questions. All right, who are the rivals for the next 4 schools? Let's take a look. Georgia, who they played the most? Auburn. Okay. Then you got Georgia Tech, clean old-fashioned hate as it's known. Then you've got Florida. Then their 4th most played game is Vanderbilt. Then Kentucky. But I got 3 possibilities there for you. Who's their biggest rival? If they could only have one win, is it Auburn, is it Florida, or is it beating the devil out of Georgia Tech?
Auburn. History tells you everything.
See, go back in my day, it would have been Georgia Tech. I mean, that historically, I think is who it was, but Georgia Tech's fallen off so bad in the last 40 years. I'm going to go with Florida.
I agree. I think it's Florida. I think the last
More than Auburn?
The last 20 years
Or you
have
are in the
changed
same
it.
division?
Yeah, they're in the same division.
Not anymore,
So for the modern fans, the younger fans, it's probably Florida. So I would lean Florida right now.
Me too, for the same reasons. SEC title or East Division could be on the line, and they have a name for their rivalry game, which not everybody has.
See, I just, well, that's true, but they keep changing it. It's not the cocktail party anymore. But you have clean old-fashioned hate for Georgia Tech. They got 2 of them. And the oldest rivalry in the deep. They got names for all 3 of them. I don't know. That one's interesting to me. I think because we're outsiders, not in it, I think we tend to look at it with logic.
Yeah.
And I don't know that logic really applies as much as just old-time
Well, I think
hate.
you also
but,
tend to look at it as which one's
know.
the bigger television game.
Yeah. So I don't know. And Georgia Tech last year got good ratings. Let's take a look back at that list. Here's Kentucky. Their number 1 most played game is Tennessee. Number 2 is Vandy. Number 3 is Georgia. Florida, LSU. I don't have Louisville on there because they didn't play for a long time. Those 2 teams don't like each other. Obviously, they play each other every year now. Tennessee's a bigger rival than Louisville, isn't it?
Yes.
For Kentucky?
I think it is.
They'd rather beat Tennessee than beat Louisville.
Because
I think.
it means more it's an SEC game. But yeah, it's Tennessee, but it's closer than it probably used to be. I think with the fact they play every year now, it's a
Yeah.
big game for them.
I think the fact that they've beaten Louisville a lot more than they've beaten Tennessee makes
Yeah.
Tennessee the one
Yeah.
you hate more. So, okay, so we get Tennessee there. LSU, Jimmy, I want to lean on you this one, you for this one. They've played Mississippi State more than anyone. Historically speaking, I would argue Ole Miss is their historical number one rival. Tulane, who they should still be playing, but they don't, is next. Then Alabama, then Florida. Alabama, a huge TV draw every year. Is it Ole Miss or is it Alabama?
I think it has become Alabama. Kind of like we were talking earlier with with Tennessee, Auburn, Tennessee, Florida. I think it has become Alabama because they had a lot of lean years at Ole Miss. Now, when I was growing up, it was more toward Ole Miss because they were fighting it out, not just for the SEC. They were national championship contenders in the
that-
late 50s, early
It's
60s.
traditional, like a Halloween game, wasn't
Yeah,
it?
yes,
Yeah.
exactly. That's when Billy Cannon made his punt return on Halloween. So, but I think that has changed. So I'm going to go LSU, Alabama, which would oversee Ole Miss.
I yield to Jimmy. We all agree with that.
Yeah.
Okay. You're not.
The-
You'll only argue
No,
with
yeah,
Bob.
that's
no.
right.
Okay.
If Auburn's involved, he will.
Let's take a look at the last one here. Mississippi State. All right. It's going to be Ole Miss, but LSU they've played. Alabama and Mississippi State are right next to each other. Those are closely related schools right there. Auburn, and then Tulane. You see, Tulane is on there with LSU. Tulane's on there with Mississippi State, and I got a hint for you. Tulane's going to be there with Ole Miss too. Can we get Tulane in and boot Vanderbilt? I would rather have that, so at least be going to New Orleans once a year. But we all agree Mississippi State and Ole Miss.
Right.
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Very good. Then let's catch a break, and when we come back, we're going to look at the rest of these, including Tennessee's. We'll show you who their 5 most played teams are. I think you're going to be surprised. I think Ryan's going to be surprised. Come on back.